In this video, we're going to take you through your P&L of your budget. Your P&L is your profit and loss statement, and it's one of the last steps of the budget. After all your budget numbers are in, your sales, your forecast costs, your forecast overhead, your P&L will show you whether your budget's on track to be profitable or not. And that's the first step before we go any further. Before we actually use the budget to estimate work, we have to make sure the budget's in line with a plan that's going to make us profitable. So let's take a look at that step right now. Going back to the LMN budget screen, after you're done all your expenses and your sales, you're going to go to the profit loss. And that's going to give you a summary. In fact, you can watch the profit and loss unfolding as you build these budgets, but it's not going to be accurate until the end. Now that you're done all these budgets, have a look at your P&L. Here's your sales revenue, here's your cost of goods sold, and here's your overhead totals. Overhead's broken down by expenses, equipment, and payroll. The key numbers here are right here in the profit section, where you're going to see your gross profit. That's simply your sales minus your job costs, and then your net profit. That's your sales minus your job costs minus your overhead. Now, ideally, you'd like to see something in the neighborhood of 10% left over in your business at the end of the year. 10% net profit margin is a pretty fair profit margin for any business. If you're less, you probably want to try to get it up closer to 10. You can be over 10. That's perfectly acceptable. If you want to shoot for 20%, go for it. But 10 is a realistic starting point, especially for companies that are struggling to be profitable. So what if you're not at 10%? It's good that you know that now and not later. In fact, that's one of the best advantages of a budget. We know that the forecasts in our head and the numbers we put in here were sort of gut instinct, and they were the things we hoped we could do this year. But now I get a chance to see whether those hopes are going to be profitable. And if they're not, we better change what we're hoping for so that we can make ourselves a profitable destiny. And then after that, the best thing about this is that the numbers that are profitable will feed themselves into your estimates so that as long as you hit your sales goals and don't overspend on your expenses, your budget will actually become a reality with the help of the way LMN is pricing your work. So let's assume that you've done your profit and loss. For those of you that are profitable and you're happy where you are, great, you're ready to the next step, which is overhead recovery. But what if you're not happy? What if your profit and loss is at 2% and you want more? Or what if you're in the negative? First of all, don't be overly concerned. If you're in the negative, welcome to the thousands of landscapers that are in the same boat. There's many, many landscapers that, especially when they take their true costs of equipment into account, aren't profitable at all. So you're in good company. But we do want to fix it. Let's take a look at a couple of strategies that'll help you fix your profit and loss. There are three main ways you can get more profitable. First is you can do more volume. For companies that overhead is running high at, this is probably where you want to do. You have a lot of overhead expenses, and if your overhead is over, say, 25 to 30%, you definitely want to look at growing your sales or doing more volume. By doing more volume without growing your overhead, you'll have more money left over at the bottom line. So if your overhead is high, one of the strategies you can use is doing more volume. And the way to do that in your budget is to increase your sales. But of course, if we're going to do more work or more volume, you're going to need more materials. And there's a good chance you're going to need more labor. And you may possibly even need more equipment. Now, don't increase your overhead. Otherwise, you probably won't get more profitable at all. What we're saying is we need to do more work with the same overhead you had today. That's one way to profit. The next way is to get more efficient. And this is particularly relevant for companies whose field labor or equipment were higher than the benchmarks. So if field labor or equipment is high, what you want to do is increase your sales, increase your materials, because if you do more sales, you're going to have to buy more materials, but hold your other expenses. What you're saying here is we're going to get more work done or have more revenue, but we're not going to need more hours or equipment or overhead. And that's like saying we're going to get more efficient. You've got to take the staff and the overhead that you have today and use it to produce more work than you're doing today. The last way to get more profitable is to charge more. And this is particularly relevant for companies who are maybe at, say, 7% profit or 8% profit. They just want to get that to 10. One of the things you can do is just increase your sales and don't increase any of your other expenses. And that often catches a lot of our users off guard where they say, well, wait a minute, I can't just do more sales without having more expenses. And what we're saying in here is, Well, you actually could charge a bit more for the work you're doing. And oftentimes the first answer we get is, well, I can't charge more. My market won't allow it. It's really competitive here. And chances are everybody who's watching this video is probably thinking the same thing. But increasing your sales goal doesn't mean you're just charging more. We don't know what you're charging today. And especially if it's not linked to a budget, you don't really know whether you're charging today is actually enough or more or too much. Heck, maybe you're losing jobs because you're too expensive. All we're saying is if your profit is close, try this. Increase your sales goal and just your sales, nothing else, until your profit says 10%. Then follow us with the rest of the videos. They'll calculate the labor rates, the equipment rates, the material markups that you'll need to add to hit that sales goal. If you go through all that and then find you're still too expensive on a job, by all means, maybe your budget does need recalculating. But 90% of the time, just that little increase in sales doesn't make a significant increase in your prices. And who knows, your prices today, if you're not using LMN, maybe they're not right in the first place. And maybe using this will help correct those problems without necessarily charging more. So before you move on to any steps, make sure your LMN budget is profitable. If your LMN budget's in the negative or not profitable, the numbers that are going to come out for estimating are going to help you either lose money or not make money. And we don't want to be there. It's a very important step right now to pause on your budget, go back and refine your numbers until your net profit is where you want it to be. And the best part about that is then when we estimate, we'll have all the estimation markups and profit margins tuned to where you want to be so you can actually make that goal a reality. If you have any questions on improving your budget's profit, be sure to reach out to us. Again, we've got live chat, you've got the help links, and by all means, you can reach us at advice@golmn.com. Let us know what you're struggling with, and we'll work with you one-on-one to help get your budget where you need it to be.